Hello, my name's Kit Pringl. I'm a consultant based in the UK, but I operate across Europe and America and also other parts of the world. I've done some work in India and also in Asia as well. So I'm well travelled, I've seen a lot of radio, and I know that not everybody has big research budgets. I do work with some companies who do strategic surveys every year, which is really helpful in being able to plan out how your radio station is moving and where it should be exactly positioned against competitors, and to find out how close you are to winning the position that you want to get. So today I thought it would be useful for us to talk about how to succeed in radio without big research budgets, because let's face it, there are lots of radio stations who just don't have those type of resources. So how do the big research companies do it? First of all, I'm going to just take you through the strategic approach that stations would do, because even without research you might be able to take some of these techniques and use them in different ways. The first thing that a company would do is they would do a large strategic market survey. Let's say that they're breaking into a market which already has an existing successful hits-based radio station and maybe a classic hits, an oldie station, or something different as well, and it needs to get somewhere in that market. What they would do is that they would test a number of formats. The sample would be about 800 to 1,000. Probably the age range would be from 15 to 49 years old. It would be done by phone, and for each of these formats, examples of this format would be played down the phone to these people to see what they think of it. Each format would be made of 6 songs, and those 6 songs have to be very carefully picked because they describe that format. So you might test, to start with, a rhythmic or a dance-leaning CHR, which would be on the younger side of this competitor. You might test one which is that CHR competitor, just to see how strong they are in that field. And a hot AC as well, and maybe a soft AC, something playing oldies too. And what you would ask for each of these formats is how often would you listen to a radio station like this? Often is a key, obviously the key response. Our next question would be, could this radio station be your favourite radio station? And then they're asked if there's a radio station in this area which plays music like this, and who that is. And from that comes a very interesting set of charts. This sample strategic station has a very good format. This is probably, in our example, the hot AC. In fact, you can see that most of the people who say that they like it a lot, or the people who are this format potential, are aged 30 to 39, probably a bit older than your standard CHR listener. You can see that it's more female appeal than male, almost 60% female. And then this final box here shows you which radio stations they think play that music. Now let's say, for example, our station, or the station we've just adopted, is in red here. The CHR may still own the image for that music, just because there isn't a radio station playing that music. And the key, obviously, is if you adopted this particular format, to hope that you can raise the attribution over the years of the red line of your radio station until it becomes the format leader in this particular music type. The final thing that we would do is create a typical listener profile based on the information that we had, and as much other research as we could pull together. We'd try and draw a sheet of your typical listener. Okay, here's an example from a radio station in America. This is a CHR radio station, and their typical listener is someone they call Gina. She's 25 years old. As you can see, she's just started her work, but she is working. She is actively dating. She's not married yet. She lives at home, or she's with roommates. It explains what car she drives, where she lives, and other things about her lifestyle. This is a useful thing because it allows the DJs and the managers of the station, and even the salespeople as well, to get a good idea of who we're talking to. So when the DJs open the microphone, it's almost like they're talking to that one particular person. And so they don't talk about things that kids are interested in or what old people are interested in. They concentrate on the things and the lifestyle and the, if you like, the life of that particular target listener. I would not trust sales charts at all to help you in selecting your music. After all, the people who buy records are fans. They're often much younger, or certainly from a different demographic group than the one that you're targeting. They will buy an album quickly and then spend a long time getting to know and to like a song. So the sale itself does not mean that someone likes a particular song. So sales charts are extremely poor indicators of choice, and I've seen many radio stations fail because they actually follow the sales charts. Obviously there are playlist charts now, and they can be more useful, particularly if you pick a radio station in a similar format with what you believe is a similar target age group, and you believe that the culture is the same between the two radio stations, and also that you trust that they're doing a certain degree of music research in a good way. If you do that, I think you have a better way of managing music, but again, it's not completely foolproof. And one final thing on music is, if you have a key set of music, make sure that you're playing your hits more than any of your competitors. That's a key way for you to earn your music position in the market, which is the most important thing for music radio stations. These are the things that radio stations with lots of research would do. Now I'd like to give you a number of tips based on having done a lot of research and seen a lot of research. It's amazing how many things are constant from station to station, from country to country even. So here are some things which you don't have to do research to find out. For most people in contemporary music formats, targeting people under the age of 40 or 45 years old, so anything from CHR through to AC, the general shape of the day is a strong, entertaining or music-based morning show, but something that's got more information, more entertainment in it than the rest of the day. And then sometime when people get to work, whether that is 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever, most music radio stations will break into much more music. And it's interesting that if you test one of those audience drivers, that would be a statement such as, how important is it that your favourite radio station through the day plays lots of music without a lot of interruptions. Almost in every contemporary format, this will come quite high. I mean, it will come just below the requirement for music of my taste or a good music variety. So it's really important that through the day we play long music sweeps if we can. Obviously, that's if you're playing adverts, you have to make a decision of how many advert breaks you have in the hour. And in fact, research has shown that the fewer the number of ad breaks in the hour, the less chance there is for audiences to tune out, even if those ad breaks are long. And there was a famous piece of research done by Arbitron in the States, a big research company. And in the United States and in some parts of Europe, they use listening meters rather than diaries to record listening measurements. So it's actually what is being listened to. And what they find is that people, about 10% of the audience will disappear when the first advert is played, but it won't fall any more than that. And even with a long ad break, say 5, 6, 7 minutes, the audience will begin to come back, amazingly, as new people tune in and are waiting to hear entertainment or music. So the fewer the ad breaks that you can play, the better. And often mainstream radio stations, popular stations, have during the daytime, say from 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, 2 ad breaks per hour. And often they're not placed equally, say at past and at the top of the hour. They're actually placed quite close together, so that there is a long music sweep, a long chance for uninterrupted music, and that drives the perception, the important perception of playing lots of music. So playing lots of music through the day and an entertaining or more music morning show. So let's talk about that, the morning show. What do they want? Well, what they want is one of two things. If they're younger than about 40 years old, or even perhaps 35 years old, they actually want a mixture of entertainment, music, and some information. The younger you become, the less important the information and news is. But all news on radio in the mornings, all the research says, keep it concise, have a high story count, but if possible, 90 seconds, 2 minutes maximum, no more than that, and possibly 1 minute could do for some young formats. And you might do a top of the hour bulletin and one at the bottom, and some traffic news if that is important to your format as well, to your listeners. Almost every really successful contemporary entertainment show has a big host, someone who has a great personality. He's engaging, he's friendly. Some people make the mistake that you need to be funny, and that can be aggressive and being mean to people. That's actually not true. Most of the research that I've seen for both AC and CHR, a friendly host is extremely important. So have a main host who is likable, a great storyteller, charismatic and funny, and also a good producer. It's amazing how important it is, I think, to have someone who really knows what content his audience are going to like, and has a little clock going in his head saying, it's time to move on now. I've done the joke, I need to move on to something else, otherwise I will lose interest. And that leads me on to another piece of research which I've done in a number of places about what is the perfect speech break, what is the perfect link, what are the things that define it. 3 things, I think. The first thing is it has to be of appeal to that target audience. I know that's fairly obvious, but it's true. You have to engage their interest at the beginning. Otherwise, they will just begin to lose interest much more quickly. So create an expectation at the beginning. Something like, you won't believe what happened to me on my way home from work yesterday evening. Or I did something for the first time in my life and I will never do it again. Here it is. So you've actually grabbed the audience in. They want to know what's going on. At this point, and I'm drawing the line of a curve, because often I do this research with what we call radio listening dials, or research dials, in fact. The fact is, what they do is they allow you to turn your interest from 0 to 10, where 0 is I've fallen asleep, and 10 is I'm really loving this. They start in the neutral position at 5, and then they play a piece of audio, and every second the computer records the reaction, and you bring together maybe 60, 100 people, and you get a very interesting analysis of where the interest curve is for something. So the first thing is to engage that interest. The next thing is get to the meat quickly. There's a funny bit in every story. The longer it takes you to get from the setup to that funny bit is a problem. You really want to get into the entertaining part as quickly as possible. So the key expression for me is get to the meat, which obviously means get to the point as quickly as possible. And then when you hit the climax, a lot of people believe that they can keep the fun going at that really high, funny level, and they will repeat new ideas and repeat the joke perhaps. They'll try and keep the fun going. Almost everything I've seen is that once you hit that climax, the audience interest begins to tail off. And so the key is, when you've hit the climax, to get out and do something different next, and it's probably going to be music. So, engage interest, get to the meat quickly, hit the climax, and get out fast. These are the keys for a perfect morning show audience curve. The other thing I want to just mention is the importance of people knowing about your radio station. There's research that is almost true across the world, which is that if you have an awareness of your radio station of, let's say, 40%. So 40% of the people will spontaneously say, if they're asked what radio stations exist around here, they'll say the name of your radio station. Then the chances are that half of that will be the number of people who listen every week. So maybe 20% of the population in that area will listen every week. And then half of that will be the core listeners, or the share of audience that you get. It's a bit rough, that, but it does sort of hold true. The point of it is that it all starts with awareness. If nobody knows about your radio station, or it's not top of mind, they're not going to listen to it. So the key is two things. One, find ways to get people aware of your radio station. The second thing is try and find ways to get your radio station to be at the top of someone's mind, which of course is extremely important for most research. So the keys to building awareness and getting noticed, and there's much more of them than there used to be. For example, social networks. If people are using Facebook or other social networks in your city or your country, whatever your market is, they're really useful to use. Engage people, ask them questions, feed them videos, you do competitions with them on Facebook. It's a great way of cementing that loyalty of listener. But also doing something I would call talkable promotions. Talkable promotions are ideas that just get the radio station talked about or noticed. It could be anything from a stunt in a street locally. It could be a calendar of all of your DJs with no clothes on, like a lot of charity calendars are in the UK these days. It could be recording a song or giving the opportunity for one of your listeners to perform a duet with a famous star, or to write the song that will appear on their on one of their albums. The chance to sit in the front row of a concert, or even on stage, or even perform with them, or be a backing singer. It's endless. You just have to be as creative as possible. But it's absolutely certain that the higher the awareness, the greater the weekly reach, and the greater the share. So taking attention to build your awareness is important too. Finally, I want to talk about some ways of doing some cheap research, because not all research has to be 200 to 800 people surveys costing huge amounts of money. The first thing is something which has been done for many years in radio, and it's called listener advisory boards, and you may already do this yourself. This is where we would ask our audience if they would like to be part of a board of people who advise us on what's important to them in their lives, and to give us some feedback about the radio station and what they're liking and what they're not liking. And usually on a monthly basis, you would invite probably 2 sets of 12 people, because 12 people or 10 to 12 people is a good number of people for effectively a focus group. And it's very useful in this sort of environment to play people examples of the product. Just asking them, what do you think of the radio station at the moment? What do you think of this show? Very difficult for people to actually give that sort of feedback. But if you play a clip of something, a promotion that you're doing, or something, a benchmark, or something you do regularly in your morning show, or through the day, or contest, whatever, it's much easier for them to be able to hear it and then comment on it. And I think you'll find some superb feedback from that. I've used listener advisory boards a lot, and they work very well. Obviously, you're talking with core listeners, with fans, and so it's likely that they will be slightly quicker to certain things, but in some ways that's important. If something is bad, they will tell you about it, and that's the important thing. But just to get some sort of a flavour, they can be very useful. The other thing that I've tried in the last couple of years and has worked very well, which is to do surveys based around social networks. Let's say you have, let's say 20,000 people, friends, or people who like you on your Facebook fan page. What you can do is send a posting out which says, we'd love you to give us some feedback, please click on this link and complete a survey. And maybe you'd say, and there's a prize for 5 people, which is music or a chance to go to a concert, whatever you have around, even a VIP trip to the radio station, perhaps. So, where does this survey come from? Well, inside Google now, there is a fantastic program called Google Forms, and in Google Forms you can write a questionnaire and it will then present it as a web page which will collect all of the data for you. It looks pretty professional and it's very easy to use, so it's quite simple to construct a pretty good research study and get some quite large numbers of responses. When I did this last, I did it with a fan page which had actually quite a lot of listeners on it. But within an hour, there were 300 responses, and it was very useful. Again, we're looking at people who really like the product, so they're going to be quite positive about it. But even so, it gives you an idea of which of the things that you're doing are the most popular and which is the least popular. And often that will, you will understand what they're telling you, and you may say, yes, I know, we've been doing this thing for too long, or we've let it become a little bit stale and boring, and we need to rejuvenate it. So using Google Forms and using your Facebook group as respondents is another way you can do it. The final thing is that online testing has obviously become a cheaper way of doing research. The only thing is, it's really important that you filter the people to your target audience. It's just not useful to hear from people who don't listen to a lot of radio, so there should be a filter in there for at least 1 hour a day listening to radio, are not in your age demographic. Often on web surveys, kids and older people will do them because they've got lots of time, which is lovely for us, but not very useful. So we should filter those. We shouldn't stop those people from taking part, but we can filter those people out, and we can we should look at the results by our target audience. If you do all of those things, I think you've got a very good chance of increasing the quality of your product at a low cost. Hope to see you again soon, maybe in the flesh, but for now, from me, thank you very much. Bye-bye.